Hey everyone, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling. Thank you for watching. This episode is going to serve a couple of purposes. One, it's a follow-up episode to a much earlier one that I did when I was just starting my Thin Lizzy collection. I'm nowhere near complete, but I thought it would be fun to update that one, and I look at that one now and my entire, background looks different. It's the same room. My hair was darker. It was done about 5-6 years ago. I'll have the link to that one at the end of this video if you want to check that out. I had very few items at that point, just starting to get into this incredible band. And also, of course, within the last week, the rock world was dealt quite a blow with the passing of John Sykes, one of the best guitar players to come out of the 80s by far. And obviously a very brief member of Thin Lizzy because they broke up shortly after he joined, but he definitely made his mark in that band, so do a little tribute to John Sykes as well. But we'll get started with the Thin Lizzy albums and the formats that I've gotten since that last episode I did. There's quite a few. I've still got quite a ways to go. I still don't have that debut on anything as of yet, but I have the second album, Shades of Blue Orphanage, and this is a reissue version from 2007, originally from 72 on Decca Universal. And this is quite an old album, but I quite like it. And you can tell it's Thin Lizzy. It's not like, the early Deep Purple or the early Alice Cooper where it's like, what am I even listening to? No, you can tell it's Thin Lizzy. It's not quite as guitar driven, or it's not as heavy, even though they were never really heavy, but there's still some good stuff on here, like Buffalo Gal and Babyface, Call the Police. I like this album quite a bit. The next one, 1973. This was the first one to feature artwork by Jim Fitzpatrick, which I love all of his artwork. Vagabonds of the Western World. This is, I'm not sure if this is a reissue or not. This says it's on Duram, but it's got an old polygram numbering system. I'm not really sure where this one originates there. I like that cover. It's a little psychedelic, but I like it. Yeah, look at that. I don't have anything else with Duram on it like that. That's an old label. This is kind of cool. Good Luck Charm. And a pretty good album, too. The next album, so far, I only have on vinyl. I got this at the Record Expo at Riverview. Nightlife. That's a cool cover. Man, I like this cover a lot. This is a Canadian version on Mercury. 4-piece band at this point. Next one is, I've got this one on a few formats. Fightin'! One of my favorite albums from 1975. Did an episode, Bug and I did an episode on that. This was in the top 20. This is a US 8-track version, which is also an RCA Music Service version. It's not a Mercury retailer. It would have been in a beige card. It would have looked quite different, but great album. Really like that album. And this is a rare example. Probably about 4 years ago now, I found this at Spin It in Moncton. I was surprised to see this pop up in a used CD bin. You don't see Thin Lizzy albums that much. This is an old European version of the Fighting album on Vertigo. And it's got the cool swirls that were on the 80s polygram discs. I like this one a lot. This is a great album. This is just a really good album. Maybe the first really classic Thin Lizzy album. I think. That's coming from still a relative newcomer to the band. Next up, the biggest one, of course, Jailbreak. This is a US... I think this is a US retail copy on Mercury. Note, all 4 of the band members are visible in the screen there. Somebody decided to color in the Mercury logo with a green marker. I did not do that. I would not do that. Sam, I am. And next, I got to thank my good buddy and frequent co-host Jex for this. He bequeathed this cassette to me. This is a Canadian reissue cassette of Jailbreak. Probably from sometime in the 80s, based on this. So that's very cool. Don't have a lot of Thin Lizzy cassettes at all. Next up, this is another one that I found at Spin It in Moncton. You find me mention that store a lot. Johnny the Fox. This tape belonged to someone named Debbie Shaxson? Yeah, Debbie Shaxson. Anyway, this is a Canadian version on Vertigo. Yeah, her name's on there again, too. So, Debbie, if you still want this 8-track, I'm sorry, but it's mine. And I found this, let's see, I found this a couple years ago when Matt and Will and I went to see Steve Vai in St. John. Found this, I believe, at Backstreet Records in St. John. I'd have to check the episode, but this is a remastered Johnny the Fox. But again, you don't see Thin Lizzy CDs. You really don't see Thin Lizzy on much for the formats out in the wild. I've been lucky to find what I've got. This is like a 90s reissue. Next up, yeah, this one's weird. So far, this is the only version of this that I have. 1977, Bad Reputation. This is from the Netherlands. And this is what polygram cassettes looked like. My Kiss Killers looks like this, and I think my version of The Elder does as well. And the way that the song titles are written. The cassette itself. And it's kind of neat. There's actually a little bit of credits inside here, and if you open it up, there's the man himself. They'll line it. Next we have the classic live album, Live and Dangerous. Now that's one that I'd already had on vinyl and CD, but also at Spin It, at the same time I found Johnny the Fox, I found this Canadian 8-track of Live and Dangerous on Mercury. Very classic. And this belonged to somebody else. This belonged to someone named Wayne Cooker, I think. An album that has turned out to be one of my favorites. And I don't think I'm alone there. I think a lot of people really like this album. I certainly do. And I got to thank Bug for this one. He found this record for me. Black Rose, 1979. I love this album. I've listened to this album a lot. This is a cutout version. See that? A hole in it? And this is a US version because it's on Warner Brothers. So if this had been in Canada, it would have been on Polygram, which is really interesting. Yeah, man, I love this album. The inner sleeve is cool too. And I also got this version on CD, which is a US version, but this is from the early 90s when Metal Blade Records, when they were distributed by Warner Brothers, reissued quite a few classic albums. They did some Deep Purple and Alice Cooper reissues, albums that had gone out of print, and this was one. So this is the Metal Blade version of Black Rose. There's no bonus tracks on this one, but you know, eventually I'll track down those bonus songs. But this is good to get me going here. It's got all the right, you know, it's got all the right inserts. Let me say it one more time. I really like the Black Rose album. I think it's really good. And Bug came through for me again. He found this CD, Chinatown. This is an older UK version, I think. It's on Vertigo, so pretty good. Not quite as good as Black Rose, but pretty good. Title song's one of my favorites. There we go. The Vertigo Swirl. Ooh. And the artwork. The artwork's just so cool. Jim Fitzpatrick again. So far, I don't have Renegade on anything, but this brings us to something else that Bug found for me. And as far as I know, someone can correct me, this has never come out by itself on CD. Now, maybe the tracks appear somewhere else, but Killers Live, or Lizzy Killers, or whatever you want to call it. And somebody wrote their name on this, although I can't tell what it says. Steichen, I can't tell what it says, but somebody with the initials SE. And Bug found this for me as well. This is a Canadian version on Vertigo Polygram. It's got 6 songs on it. It says where they were all recorded. I'd like to know, is this on CD? Because I don't know if it has. Don't have that on anything else. And that brings us up to the second part of this episode that I wanted to talk about. John Sykes, king of the room, king of the wind-ups. Like a lot of people, I first discovered John Sykes via the 1987 Whitesnake album with Crying in the Rain and Still of the Night, and Bad Boys. And fantastic guitar player. Went on to the most excellent Blue Murder debut. But before all of that, he was in Tigers of Pantang, which was a new wave of British heavy metal band, and then he got the gig. I guess he replaced Snowy White in Thin Lizzy, and it ended up being their swan song album, and one of my favorites, definitely the heaviest, Thunder and Lightning, 1983. This is an old Canadian cassette on Vertigo. Very familiar look to those of us that grew up in the 80s buying cassettes like Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and Kiss. But yeah, this is a fantastic album. Really doesn't have a lot to do with Thin Lizzy of old, but you can really hear John Sykes just ripping it up all over this album. If you're a fan of John Sykes and Whitesnake and Blue Murder, and you've never really checked out Thin Lizzy, this would be a good entry point, and then go back and get Black Rose, I would say. But yeah, Thunder and Lightning, and here it is on CD. This is a European CD, also on Vertigo. Tremendous guitar player. Conflicting stories about what he was like to work with, but it doesn't matter. The music this guy made will last and last and last. So influential on 80s guitar players, and it was very much a shock because he wasn't somebody you heard about a lot, and the next thing you heard, he was gone. There's another Vertigo swirl. And, Lizzy purists, some Lizzy purists don't like this album because it is too heavy metal, but that's precisely why I do like it. I even like this cover. I know it's cheesy, I don't care, I like it. Really need to get it on vinyl. But yeah, I would say, listen to this album. Whatever you got that John Sykes is on, crank it up in memory of the man. Yeah, very sadly missed. There's a couple more things I want to talk about. I got one more thing that covers the Sykes era, and it was kind of the swan song, not a studio album, but the final live album in the initial run of Thin Lizzy, of course. Now, I think it's kind of confusing the way they wrote this. I guess I call it life, but it's like live, life, and the V and the F are kind of imposed over each other. But this came out in late '83, and it's from what was their farewell tour. It was Phil's farewell tour with them, chock full of classics, all kinds of guest appearances by Thin Lizzy guitarists past and present. And I was actually surprised to see this at Sunrise Records. This is a Mercury Records reissue. 2-disc, it's got one of those flip out cases, and you can see on the back cover it's got a whole bunch of Thin Lizzy guitarists. You've got Gary Moore and John Sykes and Brian Robertson, of course the ever-present Scott Gorham. Some cool pictures. Really begs for me to find this on vinyl, but there will be follow-up episodes, so no problem there. And one other thing, even though my Thin Lizzy collection isn't complete, I still was honored to take part in this book, Martin Popoff's Honesty is No Excuse, Thin Lizzy on Record. I'm in the chapters on Fighting and Thunder and Lightning, and I think Shades of Blue Orphanage. Along with some other esteemed guests. It's always an honor to appear in Martin's books, but this is a good, this lets me know what I need, what I have yet to get, and to appreciate the albums that I do have, re-listen to them with fresh ears, because everybody's got so many different cool opinions on them depending on where you came in. So, yeah, Thin Lizzy, very much a collection under construction. This is a much needed update to that collection, and I also, given the time, I had to give a little shout out to the late great John Sykes. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're a Thin Lizzy fan, let me know, what should I be looking for next? And if you're a John Sykes fan, comment below. We all miss him. And, do a guitar wind up in memory of the late John Sykes. We'll see you later. It's been Tim's Final Confessions. Thanks for watching.